woman has to know everything, that you have to struggle to achieve something in life. A very great impetus when you see your name in a big journal.
Welcome to Scientifically Yours. I'm Gohar Raza, and today I am sitting with a fascinating personality, a doctor by profession, an intense researcher scholar who has made dent on science and has left imprints which are deeper. Dr. Chitra Sarkar, how do you look back at the journey of your entire life?
The journey of my life started in my childhood when my father initiated me into academic excellence.
He was your role model.
He was my role model, and my mother, who was a homemaker, was also in a way a role model to me, because my father was on the one side always sitting with my studies, while my mother taught me all the values of a homemaker. She said there is no compromise. A woman has to know everything. So your father can do all your, look after your studies, while I have to see that you learn everything which a normal middle class woman has to know. In addition, though I was
So your family was not a stinking rich kind of family who would support studies to the extent and pamper you and all that. That wasn't the atmosphere at home.
Not at all. We were a real, we were a middle class family, and there was nothing, there was no pomp and show, nothing. It was, we were all very simple people with simple ideas, parents very innocent about the outlook to life, and all they knew was that their daughter should do very well in life.
You were an only child. Were you also a lonely child?
No, I was never lonely. My parents were always a great company. I had friends at school, and somehow I liked reading a lot, so I never felt lonely at any point of my life.
Your family was located in eastern part of undivided Bengal, and then the family migrated. How come you landed in southern part of India?
My father had done his MSc chemistry from the Dhaka University, and my grandfather was a homeopathy doctor. My ancestral home was located in Cox's Bazar, which was the heart of all the political fire in Chittagong in those days. Yeah. So when they moved during the time of the partition, they did come to West Bengal first, to Calcutta, and to tried to settle around suburbs of Calcutta. But my father somehow did not like the atmosphere there. So he moved to Bangalore in exactly 1950 and took up a job in a pharmaceutical firm as a chief chemist.
Did you also grow up listening those stories of freedom movement and that atmosphere? A lot of people of my generation grew up on those stories of how we resisted British imperialism.
To some extent from my father, yes. There was, he used to tell us about his walk from there via Burma, that he entered. He walked all the way and through Burma entered India, the whole family.
Did that also shape up your personality in the sense that because your previous generation had resisted British imperialism, therefore India was to be built and built on the basis of science and technology?
Actually, I understood the value of struggle, and that you have to struggle to achieve something in life. And that is, nothing comes to you very easy. And I understood that the value of struggle is very important, and the achievement after struggle is something very, very rewarding, and that's leaves and what you learn during your struggle is a sort of a lesson throughout life.
When did you get interested in science, if you look back? Was it because of the father, or there was a support in the school or college?
I liked science from the very beginning. Personally, I liked science. And since my father was from a science background with chemistry, there was always a lot of stress in studying science. But mathematics was something I realized I was not too good at, in my school days. So then in our times we had to decide between mathematics and biology at school level itself. So I then shifted from mathematics to physics, chemistry and biology, and that is how I came. And then my father dreamt that if you take up biology, then you should become a doctor, and that's how I entered medicine.
Becoming a doctor was a fashion during those days.
Yes.
In fact, it was one of the most sought after stream as far as girls were concerned. So when did you start thinking in terms of becoming a doctor?
In class 10, due to my ranking, I got a National Merit Scholarship, and then I entered what was then the best college in Bangalore, the National College. And it was at that time then we had a 1-year pre-university course, and I had decided that I would try for medicine after completing my pre-university, depending on my ranking. And as happened, I was within the first 10 in the Bangalore University, in the pre-university, and that time it was based on the merit of the pre-university to get into a pre-medical.
Right.
So that's how I got a pre-medical, being within the first 10, I entered pre-medical of the Bangalore Medical College. And in the pre-medical, I was third in the university, so I entered MBBS. So it was.
I have to take a break, but we'll come back. Keep watching Scientifically Yours.
कैसे हुआ आसमान नीला,
पानी को कौन करता गीला,
ये धरती क्यों है गोल,
हमारे जीवन में सूरज का क्या है रोल, हवाई जहाज हवा में कैसे उड़ जाता,
पूरी को कौन है भुलाता,
कौन भरता इंटरनेट में इंफॉर्मेशन,
क्या कभी हवा भी होगी रेशन।
सोचोगे नहीं तो पता कैसे चलेगा? विज्ञान प्रसार, ताकि हर निर्णय ज्ञान आधारित हो। Vigyan Prasar, 850 Institutional Area, Sector 62, Noida. Email info@vigyanprasar.gov.in. Website www.vigyanprasar.gov.in.
Welcome back to Scientifically Yours. We are talking to Dr. Chitra Sarkar, one of the finest medical doctors who has spent large part of her life at All India Institute of Medical Sciences, a premier institute. How do you look at your time that you have spent in All India Institute of Medical Sciences? And do you remember when did you first time enter that place and how excited you were?
Yeah, I still remember. Actually, after I finished my MBBS, my father was very keen that I pursue post-graduation and do my MD. So I had my uncle and my grandparents in those days staying at Delhi, because my mother was not very keen that I come all the way from down south to north.
Must be scared.
She was scared as an only child,
child.
far away. But since her parents and her younger brother were here, And my father was very insistent that I should do it from the best premier institute in India, which was his dream, that I should do my post-graduation from there. So I applied and I came he brought me in, I still remember almost a 3-day journey those days from Bangalore to Delhi in the train. So we came to Delhi and I appeared for the All India entrance exam. And there was a lot of conflict regarding the subject of choice, which always happens at post-graduation, because I was very keen for gynecology, whereas the family was that I should take pathology, because later in life that would be something which would give me both home time, family time, as well as, professionally.
So the family won.
The family won.
Won the battle.
Yes, won the battle. And sitting in the examination hall, I had to fill in which subject are you going to ultimately fill up. Your choices had to be filled up in the hall, the final choices. So in the final choices, I filled up pathology first and gynecology second. And very expectantly, my father and I went to see the results put up on the board after the All India entrance examination. I think the results were declared after a couple of days or 3 days. And I just couldn't believe my eyes, I still remember that I had been selected, and my father had tears in his eyes that his dream had come true.
The gadgets that you have today, the kind of technology that you have today for doing pathology, were not there at that time. How did you start the pathology research part of it?
Yeah. So when I entered the pathology MD course, we had a requirement of having a thesis. So the then head of the department was Professor N.C. Naik. He's a mentor, he's my teacher. And he told me that neuropathology is a very upcoming subject. Nobody was interested in taking up neuropathology because it was in its infancy in those days. And I had...
And a very difficult subject.
And a very difficult subject which nobody wanted to enter. So he told me that I think you should do your thesis with Professor Subimal Roy, who is now my teacher, my guru, my mentor. And you should start your thesis with him in this new area which is coming up. So that's how I landed up in neuropathology, and my first project was an experimental project on, because that time...
What is neuropathology?
Neuropathology deals with studying diseases of the brain, of the spinal cord, of the muscles, of the nerves. So generally in pathology we are diagnostic people. So the diagnosis of all these diseases is neuropathology. In very lay terms, if I can put it.
What were the questions that you asked initially, and what were the scientific problems that you wanted to crack?
In neuropathology, the interest I had was in what is called neuro-oncology, which is the study of tumors of the brain and the spinal cord. Tumors of the brain are extremely challenging. Their treatment, their diagnosis, their treatment, the markers that you use to diagnose them, to tell whether a patient would respond to treatment, to tell whether one patient would benefit from some form of treatment, whether a patient would, what we call prognostic markers, whether these patients, how long they would how well they behave, their biological behavior of the tumors. So there were a lot of questions in those days related to to brain tumors. So, neurosurgery was also was growing at that time, and the neurosurgery needed a very strong backup of neuro-oncology in order to have all these, the spectrum of brain tumors to be diagnosed, prognosticated with prognostic and predictive markers. So I took interest in neuro-oncology, and over a period of time, starting from morphology, what I call, I have moved on to molecular pathology, where from we look at
What is the difference between the two? When you move, you are saying that you moved on to molecular pathology.
So morphology is what, as a pathologist, we look, the surgeon operates on a tumor in the brain and he takes out the tumor. Then we examine it under the microscope, the tumor, and we say it is this type of tumor, it is this grade of tumor. Then the management starts, whether the patient would need any adjuvant therapy in the form. If it's a cancer, then he would need radiotherapy, chemotherapy. If it's not, if it's a non-cancerous tumor, if I can put it, then he has to be non-malignant tumor.
Right.
Then he's treated in his maybe a follow-up, and patient comes to the surgeon for regular follow-ups. So basically, I say whether it's a malignant versus a non-malignant tumor of the brain.
Right.
That is morphology. Now, there are many, under the microscope, there are many look-alike tumors. So the diagnosis has to be exact in order to tell the patient, or to tell guide the clinician, this is the treatment vis-a-vis this is going to be the biological behavior of the tumor vis-a-vis this. So then we go on to what we call as tumor markers. So we do these tumor markers on the tumor in cases where we have, diagnostic difficult problems, and
What
we
is
say,
molecule all about? Do you go at molecular level?
Yeah, because now
to
cancer.
create markers?
Yeah, because now cancer is believed to be due to a variety of mutations or alterations in genes. So we have looked at molecular markers which can distinguish tumors, which means help in diagnosis. We have identified markers which help in prognosis, which means prediction of the biological behavior. And we have identified markers which are called as predictive, which tells you whether a patient would respond to a particular type of chemotherapy or treatment, etc. So diagnostic, prognostic and predictive molecular markers is what we look at.
I have to take a break, but keep watching Scientifically Yours. We'll come back.
कैसे हुआ आसमां नीला,
पानी को कौन करता गीला, ये धरती क्यों है गोल, हमारे जीवन में सूरज का क्या है रोल, हवाई जहाज हवा में कैसे उड़ जाता,
पूरी को कौन है भुलाता,
कौन भरता इंटरनेट में इंफॉर्मेशन,
क्या कभी हवा भी होगी रेशन।
सोचोगे नहीं तो पता कैसे चलेगा? विज्ञान प्रसार, ताकि हर निर्णय ज्ञान आधारित हो। Vigyan Prasar, 850 Institutional Area, Sector 62, Noida. Email info@vigyanprasar.gov.in. Website www.vigyanprasar.gov.in.
Let scientific temper be the basis for building nation. Welcome back to Scientifically Yours. We were discussing your scientific contribution and the ways in which various kinds of cancers can be mapped. And these are extremely difficult cancers to map because they are in the brain, and without surgery you can't map them. And then after that you have to give feedback to the doctor. Do you find a communication gap can be very dangerous or something, therefore communication has to be perfect?
Yeah, it's extremely important to have a very good rapport with your surgeons, or the clinicians as we call them, because the pathologist gives the feedback to the clinician based on which he decides the future treatment of the patient. So whether it's the surgeon or whether it's the neurologist, here the neurosurgeon and the neurologist whom I deal with on mainly, as well as radiation oncologists and chemotherapists who take my report. These, I have a very good team which I have developed in AIIMS with a very good rapport with our neurologists, our neurosurgeons and our radiation oncologists, so that the language is understood. We have a common language, communication, we have weekly conferences, daily discussions of patients on a regular basis, that this is such a case, treat it so and so, because there are cases which sometimes are suspected to be tumor but turn out on pathology to be infections like tuberculosis, fungal infections of the brain, parasites in the brain. So we've had, so the final word is the pathologist. If you've read the book, The Final Diagnosis, so therefore the pathologist is
you are the most
final.
important
Yes,
person in the team. However, it is teamwork which can save lives. Science is a teamwork. At times the teams are very large, but saving life is also a teamwork now. So how do you deal with these dynamics of teams?
Actually, the atmosphere in AIIMS of academic freedom is something that one has to be in the institute to realize what it is. And if today I am here where I am, it is because of this academic freedom at AIIMS. So I have been able to build up a very good team within the department. We also share, very interestingly, because pathology is a big subject. You have lesions from head to toe.
In short, you have to interact with all these people over a period, and that is how the work is done. You have had lots of collaboration even outside India. You have teams working, and those teams have relationship with you. How does it benefit? Is it worth it? Because you have excellence center within the country. Is it necessary to collaborate with outside agencies?
I collaborate largely with with other institutions within India, like the Indian Institute of Science, the IGIB, and within the institute that I have a very long time collaborator who is now the director of the National Brain Research Center, Professor Subroto Sinha. Nowadays, medicine is no longer within the confines of any single person. My expertise is in pathology and techniques related to pathology, but I have to expand beyond it to understand a disease, and each one of these centers has certain expertise which I do not have, and I find that this multi-collaborative teamwork which we have initiated has given us a lot of insight into the diseases much better, or into cancer biology much better than any individual. And I think at this stage in all over the world, it's a collaborative team effort with everyone's expertise coming in, which gives answer to a disease rather than a single person.
You have been awarded for your work. It has been recognized by your peers, your friends within scientific community, and your students. How do you look at that? Does this recognition give you impetus to work more?
Oh yeah, recognition does give you a lot of motivation to work more.
Every time you publish a paper, does it give you the same kick?
Actually, seeing your name in print for the first time, I remember my first article was published in the very famous oncology journal called Cancer, and that was possibly like the first impetus, that how you feel when you see your name in print. And this is actually a very great impetus when you see your name in a big journal.
In short, science done and not communicated in print format is no science done. Did you feel, as at any point of your life, that being a girl was an impediment in doing what you wanted to do?
I don't think at any point as a woman I felt this, and I attribute this entirely to my family system. First, my parents, whom I have always mentioned. Subsequently, I got married. My husband is also an academician, having done his PhD in economics, and he has been a great support system. My in-laws have always been very encouraging and have understood my work and the demands of my work. And subsequently my daughter. Another statement which I wish to make is, behind every successful man there is a woman, but behind every successful woman there is a man, but in addition a very supportive family composed of parents, in-laws and children.
But most women in the country may not be as fortunate. So do you feel that we need to change society for better participation of women in nation building?
Yeah, I do agree with you on this point.
So let's finally sign off with this note that if you have to do good science, then you need to change the society. Contribute to nation building. We'll be back next week with another as fascinating a personality as Dr. Sarkar. Keep watching Scientifically Yours.